Hello you guys, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. I just wanted to make a really short video before I jump into the pool. So, none of my videos are short. So I wanted to talk about, once again, tranny chasers, because they keep coming up. They keep coming up on my timeline. I keep being in situations where they are trying to talk to me. So I just wanted to make a short, hopefully a short video about the difference between a tranny chaser and a man who is trans amorous. I think it's a very important distinction to make because in the trans world, we've kind of gotten to a point where anybody who is attracted to trans women specifically, we just label as a tranny chaser. And I think, or we label them as a tranny chaser or as a DL dude. And I think it's not going to help us as trans women to label anyone who's attracted to us as a tranny chaser. Now, my definition of a tranny chaser is somebody who uses the trans community for sexual gratification, someone who by and large is just fetishizing us. So this is a man who uses us for his sexual kicks and is not really interested in getting to know you as a person, getting to know you as an individual. Then you have down low men that are often tranny chasers themselves. And for them, it's more an issue of being ashamed. A lot of these guys carry a deep-seated sense of shame. They're embarrassed that they like what they like, and they make this our problem. And that is my issue. That is my issue. They jump into the community, they jump into these situationships with trans girls. They mess with our heads, our emotions, and with our self-esteem, and they give us nothing but heartache. They give us nothing but heartache and trauma. And that's my issue. And it's very, very important that when you meet somebody who's interested in you, that you're able to identify right at the beginning whether or not this is a serious contender or if it's just a toxic tranny chaser or a toxic DL man. Now, one thing I've noticed with tranny chasers is that, number one, they are very critical of trans women. They're very critical of trans women and how they transition. They seem to have a lot of opinions on a life that they don't have to live themselves. They'll often talk about passability and, oh, I could never be with somebody who doesn't pass, or I need you to look a certain way. So they are fixated with how we have transitioned. And their fixation with how we transition, we often internalize that and we become very insecure with our own transitions. They're extremely critical of how we live our lives. I remember talking to this one man, and he was about 42, British, blue eyes, ash blonde hair. And when we had our first conversation, the first thing he said to me was, a lot of trans women are angry, a lot of them are aggressive, and he's always getting into fights with trans women because they're so angry and crazy. And when he said that, the only thing I could think of is, who is the common denominator? Who is the common denominator in all of these relationships? It is you, my dear sweet tranny chaser. You are the one that is contentious and fighting with everyone. It's very easy for them to sort of shift the blame and point it all on us and talk about how we are insecure when they make us insecure. It's easy for them to talk about how we're angry when they make us angry. They gaslight the shit out of us. And if you're not emotionally mature, if you're not someone who's with it, you can miss all of these signs. But that's one big thing you need to watch out for. Tranny chasers and DL men sexualize us to no end. They objectify us to no end. And it's easy to identify them because their conversations and their interests seem to be confined to the bedroom. They just want to talk about how we're going to have sex, where we're going to have sex, what time we're going to have sex, and they go on and on and on and on and on about it. And it does not stop. That's not to say every tranny chaser is mean or horrible about it. But the minute a man seems to only be focused on you as a sexual being, that's an issue. That is an issue. And I always use this test. I always ask myself, would he treat a cisgender woman the way that he's treating me? Would he only want to see her late at night? Would he be embarrassed to be seen with her in public? I always ask myself these questions. And if the answer is no, then it's also a no for me. That's not somebody I'm wanting to mess around with. That's not somebody I deserve to be with. One thing I've noticed, and this is more specifically with the DL men, when you sleep over at their place, at their apartment, the following day, they want to make sure that you have none of your belongings are in their apartment. They want to make sure that you take your shit and you leave, so there is no reason for you to come back again. And that's a hard truth that took me a long time to realize. When they're very antsy and they just want to get out of the apartment, or they just want you to get out, it means that they're feeling a sense of shame, and they just wanted you for their sexual experience, and that was it. And I've had to learn over time that as a woman, if I see these red flags, the red flags that you see at the beginning of the relationship are going to be the reason that you leave the relationship. They are going to be the reason that the relationship ends. Now, DL men and tranny chasers are notorious for giving you mixed signals. One minute they're hot in the bedroom and they can't get enough of you. The next minute, they criticize everything they can find about you. The next minute, they don't want to answer your calls. The next minute, they're just acting off. There are all these mixed signals. It's always hot and cold with them. It is never consistent. The only thing consistent is the erection that they have for you. That's the only thing that will ever be consistent with them. And I've learned that mixed signals are a no. If a man is giving you all of these mixed signals, my angel, it's a no. It's a no. He's not interested in you as a person. He's interested in your body, but it doesn't go beyond that. And we need to get to a point where we stop getting validation from men's attractiveness or attractedness to us. We need to get to a point where we see ourselves more than our bodies, more than our sexuality, more than what we can offer in the bedroom. Once we get to a point where we see ourselves as whole, complete human beings and beautiful human beings, that's when we can start to do away with some of these toxic men. Because if you're getting a kick from how many guys want you, or how intense their passion is for you, you will always be stuck in this perpetual cycle of playing around with these tranny chasers while real men are busy messing with real women. You know what I mean? I'm done with tranny chasers. I'm done. I've been done with tranny chasers and DL men. It's been a hot minute. In the early stages of, you know, when I had my hormones and I had my surgery, I went through this hormone high where any type of attention I got from a guy just made me feel so good about myself. But I've since graduated from that stage, and I now require more from my sexual partners. I now require more from the men that I choose to date. It's not all about sex anymore. I've moved past that point. There was a guy that I met. I was at a friend's birthday party. So she had all of her friends there, and there was this guy sitting opposite me. Blonde hair, blue eyes, this whole song and dance. He couldn't stop looking at me. Like, he couldn't stop staring at me. And when I introduced myself to him, I was like, "Hi, my name is Christabel." And he was just kind of like, "Wait, but what's your real name?" And I repeat myself, "My name is Christabel." And he's like, "So that's your real name?" And I'm like, "Yes, that's my real name." So he left it at that. And it turned out that he lived in the same block of apartments that I lived in. And I ended up leaving with him because he was going to drop me off. Now, I remember the car ride back home. The first thing he says to me is, "I know your secret." Nothing frustrates me more when somebody says that, because they feel like they have power over you, and they feel that what you're doing or who you are is something to be ashamed of. There is no secret. I'm trans. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm trans. It's not a secret. So I tell him that, no, everybody knows I'm trans. This is not a secret. And he's like, well, I know, but you're doing such a good job. No one could tell that you were trans. No one was staring at you. And I noticed how a lot of these tranny chasers seem to make your transition their own. They've never taken hormones a day in their lives. They don't understand any of the struggles, and yet they take your transition as though it's theirs. And they're very critical about how you transition. They're very, very critical. They are the biggest critics. They are the most outspoken about how we transition. And that's always been crazy for me. So this boy drops me off, and he gets my number from one of my friends, and he was blowing me up to no end, trying to meet up with me, and I was just kind of like not having it. Because I've gotten to a point where I'm like, if you disrespect my transition, if you disrespect trans women as a whole, if you don't know how to talk to us, you have no reason communicating with me. You really, really don't. You really, really don't. So tranny chasers and DL men, it's a hard no for me. They get a hard no. Because I've realized that they are guys that are actually serious about you. And how you know that a guy is serious about you, how you know that he's a good guy, he makes you feel happy. He doesn't gaslight you. He is proud to be seen with you. He talks to you about more than what is in between your legs, or more. He wants to know you, the person. He wants to get to know you, the person. If a boy doesn't take you out, if he does not show you off, if he doesn't want to be seen in public with you, that is a big red flag. If he only wants to see you at night, that is a big red flag. And you know, a lot of these DL men, a lot of these tranny chasers are cute. A lot of them are sexy. Not all girl, but some of them are. And sometimes we get so caught up in how sexy they are and how much we want to be with them that we end up disrespecting ourselves in the process. In the process of finding love, we disrespect ourselves. And it's important for you to recognize that if you're going to get into a situationship with a tranny chaser, realize that there's a serious potential that you will get hurt, that your feelings will be played with, there is a serious, serious potential of that happening. And I think we go after these guys, or rather we entertain these relationships because we don't believe that anyone would want to be with us. We get so caught up in our own self-hatred, in our own insecurity. We get so caught up in our own trauma that we have low expectations for the men that come into our lives. And I get it, you get to a point where you're so lonely and you just want someone to hold you. You just want someone to make you feel good. And you end up settling for the first tranny chaser or for the first DL man that knocks on your door. Believe me when I say this, he has nothing but pain, hurt, and trauma to give to you. The sex is not even that good half of the time. He only is going to give you pain and trauma. And we need to get to a point where we're not as tolerant of their nonsense. We are so accepting of their behavior. We're the ones who are expected to understand where they're coming from. We have to understand that it's difficult for them. They're still getting used to everything. And my thing is, you don't have to do that if you're a trans woman. If a guy is interested in you, he will do everything in his power to be with you. If he still needs to figure out whether or not he's interested in you or whether or not he wants to take you seriously, he's not a man that you need to be messing with. Mess with a guy who has his shit together, who knows what he wants, who's not ashamed of what he wants. There was a guy who commented on one of my videos, and he said, no offense, you're just a fetish. I've been with lots of trans girls, but I can't take them seriously. I'll always be with a genetic woman. And my response to that is, good for you. You take all of that and you take it back to the cis girls, because I'm not interested in anyone who has that type of mindset. I've moved past looking at relationships as only a way to get sex. When I look at a relationship, I look at a relationship's ability to help me heal, to help me feel good about myself. I see it as a partnership between two equals who respect themselves. And asking these men to respect us is not asking them for the world. Respect, that is the bare minimum that someone can give you. Before there can even be a conversation, this dude needs to respect you. He needs to at least have sympathy for you. He needs to not be ashamed of you. Because the guys that are ashamed of you, they're dangerous. They're dangerous for the trans community. They're the type of guys that will kill someone if a secret comes out about them. So I'm just not playing those games. It's 2021. I'm not here for any of it. I'm really not here for any of it, because I know that I deserve so much better, and so do you. And the thing is, if you want your Prince Charming to come, galloping into your life or waltzing into your life, you need to be the princess. You need to be the princess that deserves to have a Prince Charming. And often we don't see ourselves as that. We see everything that is wrong, and we see these guys as almost doing us a favor. They are not doing us any favors. They're the ones that gain the most from being in relationships with us. Here's a fun fact. There are more tranny chasers, DL men, and trans attracted men than there will ever be trans women. There is an oversupply of men that want to be with you. Yes, you don't always see it because people aren't always open about what they desire. But believe me, there's more of them than there are of us. And if there's more of them than there are of us, we need to start being selective. And I think it's also important that as a transgender woman, you give yourself permission to be with men outside of the trans amorous dating circle. I've met so many guys that were not really, had never really focused on trans girls, but liked me and were interested in getting to know me and wanted to be with me. I don't want to say despite the fact that I was trans, but the fact that I was trans was not a major drawing card and it didn't disqualify me. There is a whole world of guys that are okay with you, but you need to be okay with yourself first, and you need to give yourself permission to step out of the trans amorous dating pool. And even with trans amorous men, I don't really have an issue with trans amorous men as long as they're respectful and as long as they have reconciled their feelings of attractiveness for us. I don't have an issue with them. I've dated trans amorous men that were respectful, that were kind, that introduced me to their families, that told their parents. So I don't have an issue with them. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to limit my entire dating pool to trans amorous men because that's dangerous. I'm not going to limit my dating circle to tranny chasers or DL men because that is straight up dangerous. And when you only are with men that want to be with a trans woman, it can actually influence your whole transition. I've spoken to girls who've decided to not have SRS surgery because they were afraid that that only trans attracted men are ever gonna find them attractive. So some of these men can actually hinder your progress. And a major disqualifying factor for me is whenever I talk to a guy who does not want me to have the surgery. I've reconciled within myself that I'm not going to have SRS, but if I have someone who is obsessing over it, I can't be with you because you have essentially made my transition yours, and you've placed your own feelings of sexual gratification over my feelings of dysphoria, over my feelings of comfortability. There's nothing wrong with liking what you like, but don't hinder my progress because you just want to have a hookup. It doesn't work that way. It's a no for me. I've been done with tranny chasers. I will stay done. I'm done with DL men. Nothing against them. I honestly have no negativity towards them. And this is not me trying to attack DL men, but I definitely do believe that they're cowards. They are cowards. They honestly are cowards. I mean, a lot of them want to sneak around like little rats at night, you know, biting here, biting there, getting this, getting that, and they're not even open about it. So how can I, as an out and open and honest trans woman who's proud of my transition, be with somebody who's so fearful? How does that work? How does that work? So, my angel, if you're struggling with feeling like you're never going to find anyone, believe me when I say this, you will find somebody that wants to be with you. Don't limit your dating experience to tranny chasers, DL men, or trans amorous men. Look outside of the pond. There's an entire ocean of men and women and gender nonconforming people that want to be with you and that want to love you. But you need to be open to it. And you need to understand that your transition is not a hindrance to you getting love. You will find love the minute you love yourself. Once you accept yourself, you become beautiful. And once you raise your standards, your relationships start to be worthy of you. Just remember, you are the prize. You're beautiful. You're excellent. I love you so, so much. And I just wanted to end off by saying, for those of you that are gender nonconforming, I know our world is filled with trans misogyny. For those of you that are feminine gay men, I know how, I know in the gay community how the gays are obsessed with straight acting. Just realize that you are beautiful and you don't have to change anything about yourself in order to find love. Be yourself, love yourself, and other people will mirror the feelings that you have already for yourself. I don't know if any of this made sense, but I love you guys so, so much. I'm gonna go jump in the pool. South Africa is extremely hot right now. We're in the middle of summer. So I can't wait to hear from you guys, and just remember that you are worthy of everything that you want. All right, bye.